the Yakima City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Coffee.
Here.
Cousins.
Here.
Gutierrez.
Present.
Funk is absent. Hill.
Here.
Mendez.
Present.
White.
Here.
Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And George, if you'd like to introduce the interpreter and the interpreter services for tonight.
Good afternoon. Jorge Villaseñor, Language Connection. I'm here to provide interpreter services if somebody needs to. Jorge Villaseñor de la Oficina de Intérpretes. Si alguien necesita ayuda, estoy para ayudar.
Gracias.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is open discussion for the good of the order, and that is first item is listed on tonight's agenda under presentation on the Gang Reduction Task Force Initiative. Mid-year report, Senior Assistant City Attorney Sarah Watkins and Consultant Matt Fairbanks will present. Is Matt here?
Matt is here.
There's Matt.
So in your packet, I prepared a brief, as brief as a PowerPoint can be, 10 pages, a brief PowerPoint that I will not be going over word for word. So if you do have questions about things that are in it that I don't cover, please feel free to ask. And Matt is also going to answer any questions you have about what he's been doing on this project. So just as a reminder, this is arising from the proviso money provided by the governor's office. Its purpose is to develop a sustainable, organized response to gang activity, utilizing evidence-based resources and focusing our efforts on intervening with sixth graders. So we have convened the steering committee a number of times. There are council members on that steering committee, and we are continually searching for grants to make the project sustainable. One of the main components of our pilot project is the village. It's something that Matt has put together. It's a collaborative body of providers, educators, social service members, police, criminal justice. Pretty much anyone who's interested in the subject can attend village meetings. I attended the last meeting, and at the last meeting there was a presentation from Yakima Police Department about the gang culture and gang activity in Yakima, as well as some of the history of that, and a testimonial from a former gang member who was a gang member here in Yakima County, which I felt was very moving, and I think that the people who were at that village meeting found it very instructive. The next meeting is March 18th, and at that meeting there'll be another presentation. The presentations are based on input from village participants. At the end of each meeting there's informal polling of what other items they're interested in hearing about. So this is very much based on what the collaborative body wants to hear, and not coming from the top down but from the bottom up. This chart you may remember, this is a chart of the summary of the program. And what we're going to talk about tonight are the three that are circled: the coordinator position and the prevention and intervention positions. So the prevention position, the promotor, and the prevention strategy revolves around Rocio Carrion. She is a woman who will be doing radio programming at Radio KDNA. These programs are trying to provide parents, guardians, and adults who know or work with children, specifically middle schoolers, information to help prevent the kids that they know from joining or participating in gangs. We're also evaluating our ability to put radio programming on a local channel that's geared towards youth. Right now the programming is geared towards adults, and that's in place, and so the next step will be to evaluate youth programming and providing additional information to youth as an outreach effort.
I have a question.
Yep.
KDNA is a radio station in Spanish. Will you also be doing a programming in English for parents? Because that kind of makes the assumption that it's only being targeted towards Hispanic or Latino speaking.
So that decision was made before I came on board, so I'm going to have Matt answer that question.
Good afternoon, good evening. The thinking behind that was that Spanish-speaking parents often don't have the resources and access to information, both from the school districts, the service providers, and all the rest. This is a way to get in touch with them directly. We are pursuing the options with local English-speaking radio stations to do the same. We're anticipating that that might kind of reach both a youth audience as well as an adult audience. So that's the intention. We'll also be trying to get information out to the community through some public conversations with schools for parents of both language abilities.
I just want to make sure that we're targeting parents of both English speaking and non-speaking.
That's
or
our
non-English
intention.
speaking.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions about
Not
that?
this one.
Okay. So the other prong is the intervention strategy. And so we have brought on board Gary Garza, who some of you may know. He's a former Yakima Police Department police officer. He also was a school resource officer for a number of years in middle schools. And while he was doing that, he did work on gang intervention strategies that were in place at the time. So he is going to be tasked with one-on-one and small group mentoring of 5 sixth graders at Lewis and Clark and 5 sixth graders at Franklin. As you know, this is a pilot project, so we are limited in scope based on the money that the governor gave us, as well as the time period constraints. As you know, we only have a year to create this pilot program. And so we're hoping by having this small group and Gary work one-on-one with them, he can provide us some feedback about how the program will work in the future, as well as how we can increase capacity. And one of the things that we're looking at is long-term. We're going to be asking Gary for his feedback about providing training to new mentors, so that we don't have one mentor for all the youth. Obviously, that's not going to work. But we're going to need someone to coordinate training for additional mentors so we can grow a program, make it sustainable, and increase the capacity so that we're not serving only 10 kids, but we're serving any kid who could need it in the future. I think that would be a long-term goal. Maybe not in the first couple of years, but long-term. The other part of this grant is so that we can provide proof for future grants that this is something that's needed and that we have a data-driven, evidence-based project. So we have hired 2 women, Elise Minotti from Spokane. She runs a very similar program in Spokane that did receive grant funding. She's helped us by providing a lot of documents and forms, so we're not recreating the wheel. We're spending our time working on our pilot project and not coming up with new forms and things like that. She also has been really instrumental on bouncing ideas off of, and she's provided a lot of good feedback about how we can engage with, for example, the youth advisory group and things like that. We also have a contract with Juliana Van Olfen. She is a professor at San Francisco State University. She's going to be the one who is going to help us formulate surveys, which we've been working on right now, surveys for youth and their parents, guardians, or adult caretakers, so that we can get some baseline information and then see at the end of the pilot program how people's perceptions have changed, both youth and how their parents and guardians feel that their youth have benefited from the program, what changes they've seen in them, as well as some more statistical data such as attendance and grades and things like that, and discipline. And then she will provide an evaluation of that data, and then we can use that in further grant requests. So we have a weekly phone call with both of these women on Fridays where we discuss strategy, where we're at in our program. They provide feedback and best practices and tips to us, because we're trying to create this for our community, but also use methods that have already been successful. So the next steps, the first one is recruiting high school students to help provide advice on non-technical matters, as I'm calling them. So today at the pre-meeting for the mentorship internship program, I provided information to the high school leaders who are in your mentor-mentee program right now. This is a voluntary youth advisory group. We're looking at high school students who are interested in providing feedback about what is going on in schools right now. Obviously, Matt and I have not been in middle school for a while. And so I think it's important to have students who are a lot closer to the age ranges of what we're trying to reach. We don't want to miss anything that we don't know about. And we also want to make sure that our survey questions are appropriate for the youth that are in middle school and get at the information that is pressing in our community. And sometimes when you use surveys from other communities, they're not asking a specific question that maybe is very Yakima specific. So we're going to try to get some of that information from high school youth. In addition, we'll be continuing the village meetings, working with the youth in the pilot program, and compiling the data. You've seen this long-term plan before. We're somewhere in between coordinate the pilot approach and evaluate and build capacity. There's a lot of space in between those boxes. But we have come up with the pilot program approach, and now we're just executing it for the rest of the grant period. So, I have a question for you, which is, would you like another update at the end of the next quarter in front of the full council? Because then I can start preparing that as we move forward. And then do you have any questions for me? Or Matt? And he probably has a few more words to say about his role as the coordinator. So.
I would like to have an update.
I would as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'd just like to mention is that the village that Sarah was talking about is something that's been ongoing since before the grant was with us, the current grant, when Anna Cortez convened the group, I think in February and April last year, before the grant was received. And so it's a group of people who are really committed to trying to make a difference for the youth of our community. And we've been able to expand that group over the last couple of meetings we've had, one in November, one in January, the next one's, as Sarah said, in March 18th. A lot of people investing time and energy trying to see how they can make a difference. This is a small slice of the pie in terms of what's needed. We're talking working with 10 kids in 2 middle schools. If we need to work with older youth as well, kids who dropped out of school. And so I've been doing some work trying to assist other organizations and groups that are trying to build some community effort around those work. People who've been gang affiliated themselves and are trying to make a difference in our community from 3 different groups in this together. That Sonia Rodriguez-Tru's kind of been bringing it together. The Love Project, Chevy Cortez, and Triple R Ministries, and then helping some of the after-school programs try to build a joint grant effort to the a state office that would help them with some summer programming. So trying to not only do work that's specific to the small pilot that we're working on, but trying to build capacity amongst our community members and leaders to do more work to serve more kids.
Good, thank you. Any questions, Council?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I have, I guess, a request on behalf of the presenters. Well, first, I'd like to say thank you so much for your efforts on this. Sageland has been a wonderful partner to work with. I know that we're, not completely done yet, but I was interested in having the rest of the council to know a little bit more about the educational services, or ESD 105's partnership with the city of Yakima. Can you touch on that a little bit?
You bet. So the schools that we're working through are the Yakima School District. The ESD 105 has had people called education advocates, 4 of whom work in the district's, the ESD's district service area, 3 of whom do work within the Yakima schools, working with kids who've been incarcerated, long-term suspended or expelled, have been to juvenile rehabilitation sites around the state, and that they have a real strong ability to help kids get back into the school systems and be successful. And so we have Gary Garza, the person who's doing the work with the middle school youth, at the site of the ESD, working alongside and shadowing those folks while he's getting up to experience level to be able to go out and do the work himself. But we're collaborating with them, doing a memorandum of understanding with both ESD and Yakima School District to have it all work smoothly together.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd also like to share, Madam Mayor, if I may, that we have, sorry, train of thought there. We have the, excuse me here. Sorry, come back to me. Just give me a minute here.
I'll ask a question while she. What is, and I guess it's a question for Sarah. When is this pilot program supposed to end, and when does the funding cycle end for the city?
Our grant funding is through June 30th.
Through June 30th.
So
What
the
happens then?
At that point, hopefully what we can do is we have been requested to support a bill in the legislature that would provide money to a number of similar programs throughout Eastern Washington. I don't know exactly how many, and Matt knows more information than I do, so I'm going to have him pop up here. But there is an opportunity for some additional funding, so this project could go on for at least 2 more years. It's a 2-year funding cycle on that. As you know, we also got the SAMHSA grant, and so we're looking how we had a telephone conference with the grant manager that we have for the SAMHSA grant this morning. And there is some ability to overlap some of that funding with what we're doing here and also with older youth. Matt can talk more about the El Nuevo Camino project, which is the one that's going in front of the legislature. But it's basically a 2-year request from from this organization to run similar programming throughout approximately 14 other cities in Eastern Washington. Yakima is one of them. And it would provide enough money to sustain this particular program for an additional 2 years if that money were granted by the legislature.
Great, thank you. I think the discussion for us is, as a council, we need to figure out what steps we're going to take once that funding is over, as we move forward.
I think this was always intended by the governor to be a prototype for the rest of the state, or at least Eastern Washington, and I think that you're well on the way as far as doing that. I think the tie-in with the SAMHSA grant is one of the things that's going to make this sustainable, which is a blessing, because the reason that the GFI failed, one of the reasons I should say, is that it was lacking sustainability. You had
Also, it's through this effort we have really been able to become more familiar as a city with the different service providers in our community, with the multiple efforts happening, and like you said, Mayor, this is going to be used as a prototype around the state. Now, I do remember what I wanted to ask the council, and I think it's important that I ask before we conclude this agenda item. I've been asked by one of the subcontracted agencies, Ms. Carrion, to do the interview on radio KDNA on behalf of these efforts for the city. So I just wanted to ask if I could have permission from the council to do that.
I think
Yes.
that's
I just have one request for my seat for my seatmates. So if we're going to have a quarterly update, can we have it in mid-May, so we have time? If we're right up against the June 30th deadline, then if there's something that we'd like to give direction on, it's a little late for that. So I'd like to have 45 days or so to wrap up the process.
I think that's a great point.
I
Thank you
think
for
that's-
bringing that up.
1st of May would be better, perhaps.
1st of May?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's, I think Ms. Watkins gave you the information about the El Nuevo Camino. It's a multi-year, multi-million-dollar grant request that would incorporate similar programs in the Lower Yakima Valley, Yakima, Tri-Cities, Wenatchee, Mose Lake, Mattawa. So it's kind of recognizing that the gang issues that we have here in Yakima don't just reside in Yakima, that they're throughout our rural communities and larger cities of central Washington. So it's having a hearing tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Hopefully it'll go well, and stay tuned.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time. All right, we will move on then to the next is the appointment of a council representative to the Homeless Coalition Executive Committee. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move that we appoint Brad Hill.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion to appoint Brad Hill from Councilmember Cousins and a second from Councilmember Mendez. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I would. I think Councilmember Hill is the right person for the job. He's been already building relationships with these, and for continuity reasons, I think that you should be appointed to this committee.
Would you like to speak to your second?
I don't.
No? Would any other council member like to speak to this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. The next item is the good of the order, confirmation of the city manager's appointment of Stuart Wadsworth to the Yakima Valley Trolley Board. Is there a motion to confirm the city manager's appointment?
Move to confirm appointment.
Second.
We have a motion to confirm the city manager's appointment and a second. Would either one of you like to speak to this motion? No? Any council members like to speak to the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, under council reports is 5A, a report from the Council of Healthy Communities and Neighborhood Building Committee. The agenda summary has detailed information in the report. Are there any questions about the report? Our chair is not here, but I think the report was sufficient. All right, we will go on to the next. The next council report is a report from the Council Economic Development Committee. As chair of the committee, Councilmember White, would you like to make the report or add any comments to it?
Yeah, I'll make the report. I guess I'll just read through it. The last meeting, the committee placed on its standing agenda item entitled Downtown Destination, and intends to start discussion on that item as its February committee meeting. Oops. The committee will also be provided an update for the strategic plan document reflecting the council's priorities and updates from YCDA and DAY, who will be seated at the table and integrated into the economic development discussions at future meetings. That update will be provided in the agenda packet, but is not on the agenda for discussion. Scott Schaefer will also be providing the committee on an outline of what his department has the capacity to do to evaluate the downtown infrastructure. The committee will continue its discussions on abandoned and vacant buildings at its February meeting. Staff will be bringing the committee some requested information, and staff will try to solicit information from DAY and the Community Review Board prior to the meeting. The committee heard of a proposed ordinance to address prefabricated steel storage containers. The proposed ordinance would exempt some containers from the building code requirement that they be placed on foundations. Staff will formalize a proposal and provide it to the committee at the February meeting, along with information about right-of-way permit regulations. The committee heard a report regarding updating the zoning code to add regulations regarding the use of utility poles for small cell wireless facilities. This will go through Planning Commission and will make a recommendation to full council after it finishes its process. Fulcrum Institute will provide a presentation on its technology incubator at the next Economic Development Committee meeting. The committee chose not to send representatives to the Recon Conference in Vegas this year. The committee discussed the National Main Street America Conference, which will be held in Seattle from March 25th to the 22nd. It was suggested that since the national conference was closed, that council members be authorized to attend. And now the committee is asking for full council to authorize one or more council members to attend the conference. And in front of you have a packet on the Main Street Conference. And
Thank you.
do you want me to formalize that, or do we?
You intend to make a motion?
Okay, so I move to ask full council to authorize one or more council members to attend the conference.
Is there
second.
All right, we have a motion to have one or more council members attend the Main Street Conference, and we have a second. Would you like to speak to the motion, or do we just want to move on?
Sure, I think it's a great opportunity. It's in alignment with our priorities, our downtown priority, and it's a inexpensive way for us to be a part of something that's big, and it doesn't happen in the Northwest very often, so it's a great opportunity for us to attend.
Thank you.
I also want to speak to it. I agree with what Councilmember White said. Since it is in Seattle and it doesn't come around very often, I think we need to capitalize on that opportunity. I seconded the motion, but I think we may need to find out which council members are interested and available to go before we vote on it. That's fine.
Well, do you want to pass the motion first, or what are you saying?
We can pass the motion first. I'm just saying I think we should have done that first.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Does anyone want to speak to the motion?
Just those council members who are interested in attending should let our city manager.
Yeah.
We can go from there.
That works.
I think so. Okay, with that, is there any other comment? All Those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. We need to vote. Yes. I will remind the council that we have a public hearing at 6:30, so we have just a few. Oh, that's right. Oh, I'm just moving right through here. Okay. Thank you very much. Next is a report from the Council Public Safety Committee. As chair of the committee, Deputy Mayor Gutierrez, will you make the report?
Yeah, thank you. So we wanted to announce Coffee with the Cop on the 5th of this month. Unfortunately, because we canceled the last meeting, it's not a timely notification anymore. But we are going to begin the practice of trying to make those announcements here at this meeting. So folks who are watching us online or attending this meeting here in person can schedule those, maybe save the date. And also we talked about, the Public Safety Committee talked about the traffic calming petition process that we approved in August of last year. It has now been solidified, but there's still a need for us to solidify the second petition. So we have now confirmed the initial petition. So that allows the city to get through the education phase. If the education phase doesn't make an impact or an improvement with speeding, then of course enforcement would be the next step. Now, if enforcement doesn't work, which I hope that's not the case, but if enforcement doesn't work, that we will be asking for the residents to fill out that final petition. And so that still needs to be solidified. We still need to make that public, but we're not yet at a point where any of the initial petitions have been fulfilled all the way through the third phase that would require us to need that second petition in an urgent manner. So we have some time to work through that. But we also, I asked the question, and I think we'll be getting a more clear answer in this upcoming committee. I asked the question on what the procedure is in terms of moving from education phase to enforcement phase. And it's really important that the education phase in that period of time is equal and applied everywhere equally across the city before enforcement takes over. So I'm not sure yet. It's not known yet how long education will be before we move on to enforcement. And so that's a detail that I think is important for many folks to know about. And so if there's any questions on that, I would be happy to jot them down now and make sure that we answer them in the committee meeting coming up.
Are there any questions?
I have some questions for the sake of brevity. If you could just get back to me later, that'd be great. So one, I'd like to know what education would look like. So for instance, in Mr. Turner's neighborhood on Cornell near Ridgeview, what would an education effort look like? I'd like some specificity on that. And then the enforcement period, how would we measure if it's working or not?
Yeah.
Because I think the residents' perception of it being effective may be different than the enforcement officer and the police department.
I think those are excellent points.
Thank you so much for that. Anything else that you would all like me to take back to the committee? Okay, thank you so much.
I would like to talk about one project, though, Madam Mayor, on this.
Under this?
Yeah. I would just like to encourage the public to continue to reach out to the council members. There is a traffic calming process, but sometimes projects, for example, there's one on Fair Avenue that was brought up by several constituents in my district, and I brought it forth, and it was one of those projects that, where it was much needed that there was a traffic signal or a blinking flashing light for the youth that live on the east side, crossing to go to the schools and the parks there. So I just continue to encourage people to reach out and let us know where these issues are, if something doesn't seem right, or if things are broken, to report them to YACBAC. They've been exceptional. I report them anonymously, and usually the next day they're fixed. So I just encourage people to reach out and let's get things fixed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate that comment from my colleague. Right now, as it stands, we don't have any petitions submitted to the City of Yakima located east of First Street, Main Street. So if anybody is watching today and lives in an area east of First Street and know that the traffic speeding is a problem, we'd like to encourage you and welcome you to reach out if you need any help with trying to get folks to sign on, or if you just want to do that on your own, we welcome those submissions.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on.
Yes.
All right. Next under council reports is item 5D of discussion regarding the January 30th H2A Housing Forum. I think we had a report on that.
Mayor, council members, this was put on the agenda as a follow-up from the community forum that was held, just for additional council discussion if you choose to use it for that. Any direction at this time from you for staff or for the ad hoc committee would be appreciated. Any questions you have for staff to come back with additional information, we'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. I just think it was well done. I do have a few comments regarding that, but please, council members, any comments? Direction?
Well, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
There wasn't a high volume of municipal participation, and so that was something that I observed and didn't actually expect. I thought there might be a little bit more involvement. So I don't know if there's an ability for us to, try to remain proactive in trying to reach out to them. Maybe if it's just through email, but I think it's important that we continue to communicate with our neighbors about this, and perhaps at least maybe one of the neighboring cities will just let us know that they're not going to be attending to this issue right now, and that could give us at least that closure.
Well, I think the lack of attendance participation when it was in and of itself a statement. I think the individual communities are interested in pursuing their management of the H2A housing on their own, is what I certainly got out of the meeting. I think that we should probably take our own path and pattern, and would certainly suggest that we refer this to the Planning Commission to determine a definition of boarding house and congregate living, is how I would suggest this going forward, and to continue to have the ad hoc committee be involved in that process. Are there any comments to that?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I have a direct comment. I think that there were many different perspectives shared at the forum, and among those different perspectives, there was a concern about the long-term impacts that congregate living facilities or dormitory style facilities would have in our housing market. And so I would like for the council to keep in mind the long-term impacts of permitting dormitory style facilities to be developed, as opposed to actual housing facilities that resemble what people live in normally. And so I'm hesitant to get completely behind dormitory definitions. I mean, for the sake of having the definition in codes, I suppose would be a good thing. But I think we need to be we need to think ahead, and we need to make sure that we are ensuring that that there's enough property and development opportunities for developers who want to create housing for locals and long-term residents as well.
And I think that's a very good point. Is there any interest in forwarding this to the Planning Commission, or do we have a motion on that?
I'll make a motion. I move we take Kathy's suggestions and move it to the Planning Commission.
As far as congregate living and boarding, having a definition of congregate living and boarding house. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion on congregate living and boarding house going to the Planning Commission for a clear definition for the city of Yakima. We have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Again, I just want to say, Madam Mayor, I appreciate you bringing that up. I think it's really important that the city take our own kind of path and stance on that and define the terms.
Councilman Hill?
I asked several questions about the impact of H2A housing in other communities. I don't know that there's a whole lot, as much precedent as I'd like to see across the state, but we heard a lot of pros and not a lot of cons, and I just don't know that we're going to have another forum or opportunity for that to be presented. And I do think we need to bring this to some sort of definitive way forward. And I think of note, it's important, we do have a housing, not a shortage but a crisis, but several times I think Mr. Gempler and some other representatives reiterated that their intent is not to repurpose existing housing, but it would be new housing or commercial rezone property that is not currently used for housing. But I would agree with Councilmember Gutierrez that we need to be cognizant of providing affordable housing. I think that we can do both. And I think not only that, but I'm a little reluctant to tell private business owners, I just don't want to overreach with what they can do with their property.
I totally agree. Any other comment?
Yeah, did we already send this item once before to the Planning Commission and they brought us back a recommendation?
No, what we sent to the Planning Commission was a definition on long-term
Extended stay?
Hotel,
extended
motel,
stay
something
motels
like that.
and hotels,
Yeah.
and of which they did. So this is kind of an extension, the next step on that path. Councilman White, did you have a comment or a question?
No, I don't.
Okay. If there are no others, we'll have a roll call.
I have a question,
Yes.
Madam Mayor. So the motion is strictly just to task the Planning Commission for a definition?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
A definition of
Congregate
living?
and boarding house.
Right.
Okay, we can have a roll call at this time.
Coffee,
Yes.
Cousins,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Mendez,
yes.
White.
Yes.
Thank you. It passes unanimously. I would like to say something else about the actual forum itself. I'd like to publicly state that I was disappointed in YVCOG and their participation. We felt that there was a need for this forum on a valley-wide basis, and we had an ad hoc committee put together, and I think we worked on this and tried to bring it along. We asked for the YVCOG to facilitate it because we didn't think that it was our role necessarily to be the facilitators of this, since it was a valley-wide or county-wide issue. We were told that they would not do that without being compensated for their time. Keeping in mind, the city of Yakima is the largest contributor to YVCOG. This is a county-wide issue, which is what YVCOG is paid to be concerned with. As it all rolled out, it really became to be known and viewed as YVCOG's forum and their issue. And I was disappointed in the lack of vision and leadership on the part of YVCOG as this became apparent that the way it was actually done. And I just had to say that.
I completely agree with you, Madam Mayor. I think at one point I asked you to just let the public know that this was a City of Yakima forum and not a YVCOG forum, because that was the perception of the participants. And so I think it's really important to talk about the fact that we want to be a team player. We want to bring everybody to the table, but that isn't happening with other municipalities and also at a county-wide
The only pushback I would have on that comment is that we're one of 14 municipalities and the county that voluntarily participate in YBCOG activities, and I'm quite sure that the staff at YBCOG invited officials from those municipalities, and last I remember, Granger was represented, as was Sela and us. So although Larry Matson and the executive board can make decisions to invite people, I do think it's fair that they're compensated for special projects to some extent. But furthermore, we can't, as executive committee of YBCOG, force people to participate in these forums. And it seems that their non-presence was a statement that they don't have any interest in a collaborative countywide approach.
Well, all right, we all have our opinions, and I've stated mine. Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 6, the consent agenda. Items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. A council member may request an item be removed from or added to the consent agenda. If approved by the council, any items removed from the consent agenda will be placed on the regular agenda for discussion and consideration. Are there requests to remove an item from or add an item to the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda will stay as it is presented. Would you like to read the consent agenda, please?
Might take a little while.
In one breath.
I was hoping to be able to add item 11,
Oh, okay.
if you don't, to the agenda, if you don't have any.
I'm just waiting for it to load. I'm sorry.
I'm hearing nothing for an objection. Item 11 is added to the consent agenda. Anything else?
And if you don't have an issue with item 13, unless council members have, want to discuss the projects that are ongoing.
Yeah, I would like to see those.
Okay.
You want that to remain off?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Anything else?
I'd like to add item 12 to the consent agenda.
I think we have people here to speak.
That, I think they will be happy to, we do have a
Okay.
slip. Okay? That would be it.
Okay. Item 6A is approval of minutes from the January 8th and 15th, 2019 City Council business meetings and January 12th, 22nd, and 30th, and February 12th City Council special meetings. Item B is accept council committee minutes. Item C is approve payment of disbursements for the period of January 1st through 31st, 2019. Item D is fourth quarter 2018 accounts receivable status report. Item E is fourth quarter 2018 treasury report. Item F is project completion and contract acceptance for Scout Lake Construction Inc. Project 2365 Beach Street Interceptor. Item G is project completion and contract acceptance for Rachi Inc. Project 2365 Beach Street Lift Station. Item H is project completion and contract acceptance for Ovivo USA LLC. Project 2471 Yakima Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant Clarifier Drive Replacements. Item I is project completion and contract acceptance for LNS Fencing, Project 2477, Yakima Wastewater Security Fence. Item J is project completion and contract acceptance for TTC Construction Inc., Project 2480, Gregory Place and 72nd Sewer. Item K is set date of March 5th, 2019 for a closed record public meeting to consider the Yakima Planning Commission's recommendation regarding a rezone application submitted by Squire Ingham Company for property at 5231 West Powerhouse Road. Item L is a resolution authorizing a master license agreement with New Singular Wireless for the use of city's rights-of-way to install, maintain, and operate small cell wireless facilities. Item M is a resolution authorizing the city manager and the chief of police of the city of Yakima to execute an equitable sharing agreement and certification with the United States Department of Justice. Item N is a resolution authorizing a mutual aid agreement with the Yakima Training Center and Yakima Police Department. Item O is a resolution ratifying the city manager's execution of agreement with MB Companies, Inc. to provide Squire required snow removal equipment for the Yakima Air Terminal McAllister Field. Item P is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a collective bargaining agreement for 2018 through 2021 with the International Association of Firefighters Local 469 Bargaining Unit. Item Q is a resolution authorizing an agreement with Yakima Valley Senior Citizens Incorporated for support of the use of the Harmon Center. Item R is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a lease agreement with the city of Tieton and Yakima Tieton Irrigation District to lease 30 shares of Yakima Tieton Irrigation District water to the city of Tieton for the water year 2019. Item S is a resolution opening the 2019 Comprehensive Plan Amendment process pursuant to RCW 36.70A.130 and YMC Chapter 16.10. Item T is a resolution declaring a 1995 Simon Duplex LTI ladder truck to be surplus to the needs of the city and authorizing its sale to Spokane County Fire District 4. Item U is a resolution authorizing a contract with Tapani Inc. for city project number 2340, which provides for roadway reconstruction, replacement of public utilities, and other amenities in the vicinity of North First Street from SR 12 to 200 feet south of N Street. Item V is a resolution authorizing issuance of a right-of-way use permit at 9 South 6th Avenue. Item W is a resolution authorizing the write-off of certain uncollectible accounts receivable by the utility funds of the city of Yakima. Item 11 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the Henry Beauchamp Community Center operation and maintenance agreement with Opportunities Industrialization Center of Washington.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for community members to comment on items not on the agenda for tonight's business meeting. If you would like to speak during public comment, please fill a slip on the podium in the back of the chambers and hand it to the city clerk. Public comment remarks should be limited to 3 minutes per person. The council will listen to comments made during public comment, but likely will not respond directly to concerns or questions during tonight's meeting. Mr. James Turner. Nice to see you again.
Oh, wow. It's been a few months. But first off, I'd like to say, once again, thank you to all of you who have been involved for the past year and 1 month in the speed hump agenda that I've been working on since, well, 2 Januaries ago. And yes, I watched the Public Safety Committee meeting the other night. My dad had to record it for me because couldn't see it before then. But it strangely surprised me that the project has my name at the beginning of it. It was odd, but I kind of like it. I mean, shows my persistency. But unless Scott is here tonight, I want to say thank you to him, but also, again, to all of you, whoever is constantly doing this, helping me out with it, and I couldn't have even started it without all of your help. But that's about it for me. I gotta leave because I'm only parked in a 2-hour parking stop. So.
It's after 5, so I think you
I don't
probably
think
leave.
It's after 6.
Oh, okay.
Oh, after
Got a
6.
few more minutes.
But anyway, it's nice to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It's been snowing outside, and I'm anxious to see it all melt away so we can actually, continue getting the objective going further. I mean, the speed radar signs are out there, and I laugh, smile, whatever at everybody who goes past it, maxing out the speed on the sign, because it helps out. So, but thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
I'm done. See you.
I have no more slips.
Okay.
So that will take us to public meetings. Next on the agenda is item 9. Public meeting to consider citizen comments on the proposed 2019 annual action plan for CDBG and home fund programs. Neighborhood Development Services Manager Archie Matthews.
Madam Mayor?
We have to wait till
Pardon me.
6:30
8
on
and
the
9 are-
public
yeah.
hearing.
Oh, thank
So we
you
need to
very
skip
much,
to item
both of
2.
you.
So
We can go to department items. And I believe
Whalen.
that is also Mr. Matthews.
item 10.
No, we can do it tomorrow.
Number 10. Item 10, department items. First is a resolution authorizing a contract with Next Step Housing. Neighborhood Development Services Manager Archie Matthews will introduce this item.
Thank
Now, I
you.
do want to say I do have one slip. So, would you like to hear from the person prior to Archie's comments?
Yes, I think I
Please.
would.
All right, would Mr. Bob Souls come forward, please? You have 3 minutes, sir.
Hi, how are you? I had a couple questions on that project. Have you done an environmental impact survey on the property? where the bicycle complex is going to be.
Yeah, I'm sure we have,
The
yes, sir.
necessary steps were taken
Yes.
for development.
Do we take questions?
Yeah, we
Right,
don't typically
They
take
did
questions.
They did an environmental checklist, and that went through.
Like, what does that entail? I mean, just roughly.
Pardon?
Is it simply checking the soils and things like that?
No, it's a fairly extensive checklist of effects on what wildlife are existing on the property, well, I honestly, I can't remember all the
Okay,
things on the
okay.
checklist.
It's very involved in,
Get his info and get that information.
yeah, I think that.
Has traffic really,
The traffic
that
study's
seems to be a
been
real
done.
problem in that area
Sir,
for
I'm
that
the-
many.
Yeah, we don't typically take questions. This is for you to give us your
Okay.
information, and we
Yeah.
will respond.
I
Maybe
just
if
wanted
you
to,
leave your
I
info,
just,
we can-
I wasn't here when you guys were probably planning
Yeah,
all
this
this.
was all
Well,
done.
Mayor, now that we've delved into this and started
And,
discussion,
uh,
I can answer the question for him. Our memo says that there was an extensive 18-month process of review, which included a zoning and environmental review. So there was an 18-month process, sir.
Right.
And we've
Yeah,
had
to me,
testimony
part of the
before.
environment is where you're putting that. You have a professional office buildings on one side,
May I make a
you know,
suggestion?
Well, he's
and,
making his statement now.
and then you have retirement homes on the other side. And you have a very narrow road, if you've ever driven through there often, and it just seems like it'd really be a hazard as far as safety for the neighbors that already exist in that neighborhood. I understand the need to have something like this. I applaud the idea, but I just don't think that location is a very good location for that. I think it should have an impact in a safety, in a very strong safety negative form. If you have a project with that many homes in that area, and you know, the roads aren't wide enough. There needs to be a light on Summit View, and the only way out of there, you ever try to take a left right there, it's impossible. A little bit more so when you have more people in there. So that's just, you know.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right,
Sir.
Mr. Robert Strader, if you'd like to come forward.
Hi, I'm Robert Strader. I'm a citizen of Yakima. Thank you for having us. I'm a neighbor in this area. I live on 45th Avenue. I'm a strong supporter of this housing. I think it's vitally needed, and I think our neighborhood needs to step up, and we need to accept being a member of the community. And you know, it's not an issue as far as safety is concerned. The people who are going to be living there will be screened, they'll be supported. This is a good, strong effort for us. Studies show that housing is the most important issue to overcome for people who are homeless chronically. And this is going to provide needed housing that the city needs for our citizens, and we can get them on, you know, a chance to step up and become productive citizens. I just read today, a wonderful article about New Orleans, who had a horrible problem with homelessness. They've reduced their homeless population by over 80% in 7 years by making sure there was adequate housing. They've reduced the amount of homelessness for veterans to almost zero. But they can count them on one hand, the number that are not housed in New Orleans. Housing first is very important and a wonderful solution for homeless problems. And I know that this issue isn't all about homelessness. I know that there are other people going to be housed there, but affordable housing is vitally important. So thank you so much for your time and looking into this.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Schreier.
I hear no other comments, or I have no other slips. Is there, would you like to take?
Do we want to hear from Archie? I would like to hear from
Oh,
Archie. 'Cause
Archie,
I do have a question, but I think he's going to answer.
Pardon me. Pardon me, Archie.
Good evening, City Council.
Good evening.
Back in 2016, Next Step Housing made a request for home funds to the city of Yakima to assist with the land acquisition and development of a new 80-unit multifamily affordable housing complex located at 118 North 50th Avenue. This project completed zoning and environmental review necessary for the site development. The approval process took approximately 18 months. To answer the individual's question about environmental review, not only do we do local environmental review, but to put home money or HUD money into a project, we go through a lengthy online environmental review process that looks at not only wildlife, streams, air quality, it looks at the airport overlay, it looks at a lot of things that we have to show HUD. And then we have to submit a request for release of funds to HUD. They look at the environmental review and then give us that authorization. And we do have that authorization. The project known as Bicycle Apartments is estimated to be over $19 million in project development costs. Funding is from a partnership including the Washington State Housing Tax Credit Program, which is about $15.4 million, the Housing Trust Fund, which is approximately $1.2 million, and we at ONDS are proposing that the city put in home funds to $1 million, which is 5% of the total project cost. As the annual recipient of home investment funds from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the city of Yakima must invest these type of funds for affordable housing within its jurisdiction. All 80 of these units will be for qualified low to moderate income individuals. They go through quite a application process. Projects that receive funding from the City of Yakima Home Program must be consistent with the City Consolidated Plan, which guides home and CDBG funding, as well as the City Comprehensive Plan. This is one of those qualified projects. Funding through the Home Program requires the applicant to have a HUD-compliant management plan and ensure the housing units meet affordability requirements for a minimum of 20 years. Home investment funds are limited to projects that either rehabilitate existing affordable housing units or new construction of affordable housing units, as in this case. Every dollar of home funds must be matched with at least 25 cents of non-federal funds. Therefore, the City of Yakima is most often in the final funding piece of our non-profit partner organizations. The City of Yakima has for many years invested its home investment funds through affordable housing partnership with local nonprofits that qualify as approved community housing development organizations, or also known as CHODOs. The City of Yakima is obligated to spend home funds in a timely manner. We are now able to provide the requested $1 million to complete the funding package of this $19 million project. In addition, just a little bit of a forethought, the redevelopment of the Armory building on South 16th Avenue by the Yakima Housing Authority will also be requesting funds. And just to assure City Council, we also have adequate home funds to support that up-and-coming project. As you remember, back in 2016, Next Step Housing requested $500,000. That was 3 years ago. We have an exceeding amount of home money. That's why we have increased the amount to meet their $1 million request. This is, or will be, a zero-tolerance drug and alcohol facility. It has on-case management 24/7. This is not a shelter or a soup kitchen. This will be permanent housing for families, individuals, and people living with disabilities and veterans.
Yeah.
I do have a question.
I have several questions.
Thanks, Archie, for being here and for that report. You said last time we had spoken, or at least I remembered, about this project, about the 500, and it's now $1 million.
Yes.
So I just have two questions around that. One, this situation is if we don't spend the money because we have the excess in home funds, then we lose it. Is that correct?
We are obligated to spend approximately $990,000 by July 1st, or we have to return $440,000 of home money to HUD. You have to understand the logistics with home money. Typically, we have in the past received anywhere between $300,000 and $500,000 a year. Projects of this size typically take 3 to 5 years to go through the development stage. Back in 2016, we had some program income, and we put that with our entitlement of 2016, and we had enough at that point in time to do a $500,000 contribution and not leave ourselves with an empty pocket. We always try to have money held back in case a project comes forward that can only go forward with local participation. So it's incredibly important that we sit down and carefully negotiate how we invest our home money into projects, little projects and big projects. But we also have to understand how much program income we have from past projects coming in. We had enough program income at the time, 2016, to do the bicycle apartments at $500,000, and we knew the armory was coming up. But both of those projects have extended now into 2019, and we have received approximately another $1.5 million. So now we're bunched up with this home money, waiting for two very large projects, the bicycle apartment and the armory project. And then we also have a smaller project coming into line. But right now, HUD is saying you have banked all this money. You have to spend this amount on a project. This is the project that we need to spend the money on now so that we can meet our fiscal responsibilities with HUD and don't have to surrender any money.
Thank you for that explanation, because that was my second question was, were the other projects just not quite ready yet? And I think you answered that as
Yes,
well. So
ma'am.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Gutierrez. Oh, either one of you have a question?
I don't.
I'm sorry.
Should
that
wait
is
for me
Councilmember
last, 'cause
Hill.
I have several
Okay.
questions.
I don't, Madam Mayor.
All right.
Okay.
Councilmember White.
No, actually, you did a great job, Archie, of answering a lot of the questions I had, so I'd like to hear what Brad has.
Okay, so I'll try to move through these quickly. So you answered the question about the sobriety requirements. So 100% of residents are required.
Yes,
Zero
for
tolerance.
drug and alcohol
Okay.
free. Yeah.
So if someone's drunk or high, will they be removed from the property? What's the process? I mean,
You know, I'm not real sure about the process.
I'd
but
like some feedback
they,
for that,
They
Archie.
have done quite a few housing projects with us. They test on a regular basis. If they have any kind of suspicion, I believe they are removed from that housing. They have to meet that drug and alcohol free criteria.
Okay. And then you said the deadline for obligating the money is July 30th. You said you have adequate home funds for the armory. So what constitutes adequate funds for the armory project, which is of particular interest to me?
They have requested also $1 million, and we have that much funding that we can put in that project.
Can you repeat that? How much?
$1 million.
Sorry, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We also have a two-phase project in the pipeline right now that we're running the environmental on. We're also working on the environmental on the armory. It's quite an extensive process. And then they will come with us with a proposal. We also have another project in the pipeline that we're doing the environmental on. We're actually waiting for a request release of funds. It's 2 phases. It's $50,000 now and $50,000 later. When later is, I don't know. But we always try, even with these $1 million projects, we always try to keep enough money back that when a $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 project comes to town and they need our participation, generally to make the housing trust funds or the tax credit application, we have enough to participate.
So what is this other project you're speaking about specifically? Where's
It's
it located?
Stonewood Apartments. It's down just off Yakima Avenue with Von Bay Construction. They're looking at adding units there.
Okay. How many affordable housing projects like this are in District 6 to date?
I don't know what District 6 is.
West of 40th, north of Tide.
It's probably the first
North
one
of
I
Summit View.
North of Summit.
North of Summit View, no, I think,
No, north of Tide.
It's kind of does some weird.
Yeah, yeah.
Ours
Generally.
kind of split,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Are you aware of any other affordable housing projects in
No,
that
sir.
district?
None, no, sir.
Okay. What is the impact on this particular project if we do not authorize the money? It's a $19 million project. Will it be completed?
Oh, I believe it will be completed without our participation. I think they've gone too far into the process.
Where else could the money be spent other than the bicycle apartments if we don't vote? to
I don't
authorize?
think we will meet our obligation to spend it by the deadline, and I think we will forfeit $440,000.
So who does it benefit if we do use this money? I assume somebody's not paying if we're paying.
I don't know where the additional funding would come from. I have no idea. I would also be extremely concerned if we did not participate in this project, that they may lose their housing tax credits and or their housing trust fund. So 80 families, low to moderate income families, would not have affordable housing units.
Are all of the residents, to your knowledge, will they be recovering addicts or people with other disabilities?
I don't know what to say about that. I can't make comment to that. I don't go through the application project
Okay,
process.
thank you, Archie, for answering all my questions.
okay, we have someone that wants to speak to this. Come in late. You will. All right, Mr. Rick Glenn.
Hi, thank you for your time. I'm a member of the Landlord Tenant Association, and we've been wrestling with housing all the time. And one of the things that's kind of intrigued me as I've watched this project, basically what the proposal is to put in a project that's going to cost $240,000 for every single apartment that goes in. Most of the citizens of Yakima don't live in that kind of housing. And I'm wondering if the city might be better to look at other ways to help housing. The situation that we're looking at in the city of Yakima right now is that housing is becoming very difficult for the lower income people. They're having a real tough time with it. And we don't really think much about utility expenses and the taxes on utilities, but they've been going up about 30% every year for the last several years. And that's been a real popular way to generate revenue for the city, which I understand, but it's killing the renters. And the other thing that you need to look at when you're thinking about providing housing for homeless people is that there's a ton of people that are on the edge right now. And when we keep increasing the cost of their living expenses by raising these things, it really, that's how you create new homeless people. And so I look at it, and I looked at the Yakima Housing Authority. I thought, okay, what kind of a deal is that really? And I looked at their balance sheet for 2017, just for the heck of it, and I broke it down to just one unit with 150 units, Yakima Housing Authority. The tenants pay $586 a month for each unit. The cost of providing those units is $2,800. Plus, Yakima Housing Authority doesn't pay property taxes, so they get an additional. So the expense of providing housing on these established products with Yakima Housing Authority is over $3,000 per apartment, and the tenants are paying about 20% of that. So when you look at housing, think about the private landlords. We provide the cheapest housing out there, and we try to do it as cheaply as we can. And the reality is the cost of government, property taxes, utilities, water, sewer, garbage, going to the dump, all those things are going up by huge amounts, and they represent 25 to 50% of what it costs to have a tenant. So the tenant's rent is affected to a great degree by the amount of these utilities and things that we charge. So I would like to see this city council, these projects look nice, but the reality is I think there's better ways that you can serve the citizens of Yakima by trying to keep the costs down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that the buzzer? Does that have to quit?
Yeah. I have one more question for either Joan or Archie, Mayor. If
go
that,
ahead. Yes.
okay. So Archie, in the summary explanation for this item, it says that funding through the home program requires the applicant to have a HUD-compliant management plan and ensure the housing units meet affordability requirements for a minimum of 20 years. So can you describe to me what a HUD-compliant management plan requires of this property if we provide them the housing?
Yeah, they have
If we provide them the funding, sorry.
They have to show us how they're going to qualify the people as far as income. HUD puts out a affordability analysis yearly for what a high and low rent can be. They also have to show us if they're doing any kind of a utility management, or if they're going to deduct utility off from a rental unit. The other thing they have to show us is they have to show us that they have a management plan or a management committee in place to look at facility maintenance. We, depending on the affordability period, we have to regularly inspect so many units in these projects to make sure that they are clean, safe, affordable. They have to go through a housing quality checklist. If there's any deficiencies, we give the management notice of that and have to correct that, and then we re-inspect. Yearly, or in this case, I'm not sure if usually it's yearly, 3 years, and then 5 years. We actually look at the tenants and make sure that they qualify as low to moderate in these individual units. And in all the time that we worked with Next Step, they've never failed to comply.
So the funding says it's Washington State Housing Tax Credit Program and Housing Trust Fund, and then only $1 million of Yakima Home Funds. So if we don't provide the Yakima Home Funds, do we have those securities, or are they exempt from those requirements?
No, they're exempt from those requirements.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I think what you're saying is, well, I won't speak for you. What I'm hearing is by pushing the $1 million forward that we would lose otherwise, we're potentially protecting residents from affordable housing becoming unaffordable, from the property becoming dirty, unlivable, unsafe. We'll be inspecting units. Is that correct?
My opinion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's my opinion. My opinion is that when we contribute to decent, safe, affordable housing as an entitlement, that we make those type of securities to not only the property owner but to our citizens. And through a 20-year affordability program, we inspect that regularly to make sure that they're following those rules and that the right individuals are being served properly with federal funds.
All right. Thank you.
Just quickly on that note, you don't inspect private landlords that.
No, ma'am.
So, okay, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Madam,
Okay.
I'd
Yes.
like to make a motion.
Yes,
I
please.
move to adopt the resolution.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt the resolution and a second. Would either one of you like to speak to your motion?
I just want to say thank you to Archie for answering all the questions that we had. I really appreciate your report. And affordable housing in Yakima is a huge issue, so anytime we can do anything to help that, I'm in favor.
And I think you made the second.
Yeah, well, first I'd like to say that I'm happy, and I appreciate the questions posed by Councilmember Hill. I know that this is going to be something that he'll probably be getting a lot of questions about for some time now. And so I appreciate the clarity around those questions as well. This is a pretty simple decision for me to support, because it really comes down to increasing affordable housing in our community. This will help decrease homelessness and overall create more stability in our community. So it just seems to be the most logical way forward to improving affordable housing.
Okay. Any further comments, questions?
I have some comments. Go ahead, Jason.
I would also like to thank Archie for informing us of more details on the Yakima Home Funds and what they're available for and some of the new projects coming online. From my experience, the other Next Step housing projects have been a huge success. They seem to be very managed very well, and so I'm happy to support this, and I'm glad that that council has shown time after time that we're doing everything we can to expedite any of these affordable housing solutions, and there's multiple projects happening, and we're doing everything we can right now to make sure that we don't have any delays, and I'm glad that this project is finally taking shape and we'll get off the ground. So.
Quickly.
Yes, I would just say, as the recently appointed YVCOG Homeless Coalition Executive Committee member, I have a responsibility to promote affordable housing during our housing crisis, particularly for people that aren't homeowners. Secondly, we rely on our subject matter experts like Archie to inform us on the ramifications of approving or disapproving these funds. And I think that if what Archie says is correct, that this will go ahead anyway, that having the home funding in place provides certain securities for the residents, and without that, it's going to be built either way, without the protections that the home money provides. Furthermore, I understand the sensitivity. I have family and friends that lived in blocks of this project, but nonetheless, I think each district has a responsibility to absorb the requirements of affordable housing, and so I support this measure.
Thank you.
I too echo the sentiments of my fellow council members. This has been a project that we've been working since we started, 18 months ago. This is affordable housing is on our strategic priority, so I'm happy every time that I see that Archie is here to present a project that meets more affordable housing, whether it's through Habitat with Humanity, one house at a time, or projects like this. That means that a family or a household is getting safe and secured housing. So thank you.
I think we've had a good summary of our feelings about this, and I think, Archie, you have done an excellent job in summarizing what we are looking at, and I think we can move forward if you'd like to read the resolution.
This is a resolution authorizing an agreement with Next Step Housing in the amount of up to $1 million in federal housing and urban development home funds for property acquisition for low-income housing units.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Cousins?
Yes.
Gutierrez?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Mendez?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes. It passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Archie. Next is department item number 12, consideration of allocating $75,000 in lodging tax funds to the Sundome in 2019. Director of Finance and Budget, Steve Broom, will introduce this item. We have about 10 minutes for this item.
Mayor and council members, I was asked to do a brief intro for Steve on this matter. And by way of introduction, there's been a PowerPoint prepared for this discussion that was 2 times put off during the budget process because of timing, and I just wanted you to be aware of it, and the slides of it are in your materials, but Steve is prepared to present it if you wish. It would provide good information on the lodging tax and the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. If you chose to watch it, it's about 10 minutes.
Do we need that, Madam Mayor?
I think the information was very sufficient in the packet. I don't know if anyone else feels that way or not.
I agree. I've seen it.
I don't need to see it.
All right, I think the census is that it is sufficient. So we do have 3 people that want to speak to this, so we need to get moving along. The first would be Luz Gutierrez. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, council members. I'm here to speak not against this motion, but against this project, but against the process. As I've looked in information about the lodging tax funds, the things that they're supposed to be doing is tourism marketing, marketing and operation of special events and festivals, operations of tourist-related facilities owned or operated by a municipality or a public facilities district. Or number 4, operations of tourism-related facilities owned or operated by nonprofits. I bring to you the fact that I tried to get on the website today and get a copy of this contract with the Sundome, and I could not access it. So I think transparency is very important, and I don't think there's a transparency process within this city council for the use of these funds. And I think that needs to be looked at for the long-term process. We talked about it briefly before when we were going through the budget project. Everybody said, yeah, and it poo-pooed it and never saw it again. And now all of a sudden this comes before the city council. This is something that should have gone through the Economic Development Committee. I've been to all the meetings. This was never brought before the Economic Development Committee. And I think that I have seen the process here, and this is kind of a project that would go through it. And when I asked the staff person, are you going to be talking about the funds? And the staff person said, no, we're going to discuss it at the council meeting. So I think the most important thing to me as a resident of this community and to the people that want to be able to have the opportunity to access these funds is that we have to know the process. Right now, it's a mutual admiration society that's providing funds to each other, and I don't even know who the committee. Most of the other communities, including Sunnyside, I believe, they actually have a committee that reports their recommendations to the city council, and then the city council votes on those recommendations. I don't see that process here. So I think the council really has to look at the fact that there has to be a process, and if it was supposed to, who is this committee? I really don't know who it is, and I don't know if the council is really in charge of these monies. Right now, it's like it's being dictated to the council who's supposed to get those resources. So that's my opinion, and I think that should be looked at because it's not really fair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry you missed the meeting where the recommendation was from the committee to the city council. Jean Roswell. You only have 3 minutes. We need to move this along. Nice to see you, Jean.
Hi, I'm Gene Rosfold. I'm a resident of Yakima, and I'm here to encourage you to allocate the $75,000 of the tourist promotion money to the Sundome. I think one of the things I'd like to do is establish my credibility here. I've been involved in these type of events for a long time. One of you knows me pretty well. The rest of you, I think, don't know the things that I've been involved in this community for 30 years. But anyway, currently I'm chair of the Yakima Valley Sports Commission. I'm president of the Greater Yakima Sports Association. I'm an ex officio member on the Yakima Valley Tourism Board, and I've managed the state basketball tournaments in the Sundome for 20 years. The 1A, 2B Boys and Girls Tournament would be the 21st year. So, you know, I think I have a lot of credibility as far as trying to encourage you to make the decision about these funds. What's important about the funds is that going after these tournaments is a competitive bid process through WIA. And those communities that are able to offer the best financial package, offer the best management of the tournament, that have a good venue like the Sundome, are going to stand the best chance of getting these tournaments. And the $75,000 really helps us to get there. Obviously, the tournaments and those sports tourism activities bring a lot of revenue to the city, generates tax dollars. But to me, probably one of the most important benefits is that we're bringing people to Yakima from all corners of the state. When we first bid for these tournaments, 20 years ago, there was a lot of resistance to come to Yakima and bring a large tournament here, WIA event. People had the perception that Yakima wasn't big enough. We didn't have enough hotels. We didn't have enough restaurants. There were some safety concerns with our city around the state. And I think what we've been able to do over 20 years is really to dispel that notion that this isn't a good place to come. So I think it's extremely important that we continue promoting these events, that the city council is enthusiastic about having these events here. And the $75,000 is absolutely critical, in my opinion, in helping us to bid for these tournaments, bring them here, establish good relationships with WIA, and so I really strongly encourage you to, consider, my position. And I'm gonna at the conclude after we're done here, I'm gonna hand you out.
We're done. Time's up.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, I'm gonna hand out a little sheet.
Okay. Thanks,
That shows
Gene.
my
Go.
involvement to help.
All right. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Thank you.
But we have one more, and it is Sarah Devella. Sarah.
Hi. Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you again for your support. It means a lot to the Lodging Association, and I do sit on the LTAC committee as well. Just wanted to show the support for our the historic perspective as well as sports perspective and lodging perspective. So thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our comments.
Madam Mayor,
Make a motion? Oh.
sure, you can make the motion, but I'd like to be able to have an opportunity for council members to discuss this item.
Of course.
So,
Are you making a motion?
I'd like to make a motion,
Okay.
if that's okay, and then we can discuss. Will that work for you?
I'd like to be able to discuss this first, and then we can move on with your motion.
So, let's go.
Okay. This is an item that I had requested to have a conversation because I too didn't appreciate how these funds were distributed. I see a lot of the local or the representatives of the LTAC committee here today. I thank you for being here and being an active participant. One of the things that I would like to request officially is that the LTAC meets more than once a year. And you meet on a quarterly basis, and that you have reports for council. This was something that the committee had only been meeting once a year and would make the recommendation late in the budget process, so it wouldn't give council the ability to be able to digest all of this. I think that this is why it's so late in the process that we're talking about a budget item in February. Furthermore, I think that the city of Yakima is more than invested in the Sundom, and this is also one of the reasons why I thought, well, maybe we could use these funds for a city-owned facility, whether it was the Convention Center or the Capitol Theater or other organization within the city of Yakima, because of the ongoing service debt that we have with the Sundom. $150,000 is already being allocated through REIT until 2023. So there are a lot of financial contributions that the city of Yakima is already doing with the Sundom itself as an entity. And so I just want to make sure that you guys are also advocating on behalf of the city of Yakima, as much as you guys are advocating on a facility that it's, also, I understand that it brings a lot of sales tax and revenue, but ultimately our responsibility is to be responsible for the city of Yakima, not for other entities, and so that's where my hesitation is. I know the way most council members, I think, feel about this, but I do hope that within the next budget cycle that we have an opportunity and give other organizations an opportunity to present proposals to be eligible participants of this type of funding.
Thank you.
That's it.
Madam Mayor, due to time in the public hearing, can I?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I move that we support the LTAC recommendation allocating the $75,000 in lodging tax funds to the Sundom.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to support the LTAC recommendation of the $75,000 to the Sundome, and a second motion by Councilmember Cousins and a second by Councilmember Hill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, just really quickly, I'm in support of this. I think the Sundome, well, I know the Sundome brings a lot of economic drivers to the city of Yakima, and I think that $75,000 is a great way to help support the teams that are coming in and people eating in our restaurants, staying in our hotels. So I'm very much in favor.
Thank you. Councilmember Hill?
WII events alone bring $45,000 in LTAC money to the city, with an estimated sales tax revenue of $159,332 annually into the general fund. So I think it's worth the investment, particularly because LTAC has such restricted use.
All right.
Yeah, I agree with supporting these events, and moving forward, though, I would definitely like to take a closer look at it and truly look at the economic impact and the process. So.
Okay.
I just have, I'm sorry, one more comment, Mayor Coffey, when everybody is done.
Okay. All right. Anything further? I do have a brief report, if I may. The LTAC met this afternoon, and there will be quarterly meetings, which will be reported to the City Council. And we do have a process that will be opening in March 1st to have applications presented. It'll be a public notification, and then a decision will be made after open till May 1st. A decision will be coming forward to the City Council at that time. Our recommendations, I should say. So with that, any other comments?
Thank you for doing that.
Anything else?
I appreciate the presentation that was provided in the PowerPoint. However, I think my previous experience as an analyst makes me wonder what the source of this information is. So when we see statements like $23.9 million is the economic impact, I'd like to know how those numbers are developed. We take a lot of things for granted, and there are other things, cultural events that we could invest this money in. It's hard for me to walk away from $23.9 million in investment, and I just want to know what the correlation is between that $75,000 and how we got to $23.9 million. So I would encourage the LTAC chair and the rest of the members to make sure that they provide sourcing for this information in the future.
I think the methodology should be included in it.
Thank you.
I totally agree. I also would like to remind the council members that the LTAC recommendation included the recommendation that we meet with the county commissioners, asking them to participate in the $75,000 and or additional funds for the Sundome. So with that, are there any further questions or comments? Would you like, is there?
Well, yeah, I do have a comment. You know, I support this because because I believe in good partnerships, I believe in good communication, and the city of Yakima simply didn't give the Sundome an advance notice, and we didn't talk with this about them. We pulled the carpet we pulled the rug right up from under them. And that's not how you do business. And so I support this year, but I do question how, you know, bidding for tournaments has been occurring for 20 years. And yet the $75,000 allocation didn't begin until just 4 years ago. This would be just the 5th year. And you know, it's kind of scary to see that the Sundome would have put WIAA on the chopping board. And I would hate to see that go away. But I guess like Councilmember Hill has said, it'd be good to have sources and know how these numbers are being provided. I also couldn't help but notice a discrepancy in the presentation when asking for these funds, that they provide, you know, retail sales tax by, you know, having student athletes or athletes eating at restaurants here. But then also we were informed that there's a spaghetti feed for them. So I don't necessarily know. I'm not sure how that works out. But ultimately, I think that we need to have a more thorough process, a more transparent process, as it was stated by a community member. And I think that that's already well on its way. So I'm going to continue to support this today, and looking forward to the process being more thorough in the future.
think that is good. I think we've all had our say. I too think that I would like to echo Councilmember Mendez's comment, though. Yakima has made a huge investment in the economic development of sports events with facilities and also in convention and tourism. And I think that we need to make sure that we protect that investment and continue to invest in it. So I think that the LTAC made a recommendation as far as meeting with the county commissioners, and I think that that should be pursued. But with that, if you'd like to repeat the motion, we will have a vote.
The motion is that we support the LTAC recommendation allocating $75,000 in LTAC funds to the Sundome.
Roll call, please.
Gutierrez?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Mendez?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Coffee?
Yes.
Cousins?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. All right, we need to go to our public hearing. It is public meeting to consider the notice of intent to commence proceedings on the 96th and Tieton annexation. Planning Manager Joseph Calhoun will introduce this topic, or this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Joseph Calhoun, Planning Manager. In your packet is a notice of intent to commence annexation, which was received by the Planning Division on December 18th, 2018, and was signed by 100% of the property owners, which includes 7 parcels and 5 different property owners. 3 of the properties contain single-family homes and the remainder are vacant. The area proposed for annexation is located at the northwest corner of 96th Ave and Tieton Drive. It contains approximately 9.32 acres, which is zoned a mixture of 2-family residential R2, multifamily residential R3, and local business B2. The purpose of tonight's meeting is for Council to determine whether to accept, reject, or geographically modify the proposed annexation, whether there is a consistency with the comprehensive plan, and in that regard the existing comp plan designation of the area is consistent with the Urban Area Comprehensive Plan 2040, and a separate comprehensive plan would not be required. And finally, whether to require the assumption of existing city indebtedness by the area to be annexed, which essentially means that the parcels would be taxed at the same rate and on the same basis as other parcels in the city, and would be subject to any outstanding indebtedness that may appropriately be applied to them. If Council chooses to accept the request for annexation, what that means is that staff will begin the review process. The annexation process involves a number of steps, including but not limited to the certification of several documents such as petition signatures and a legal description, the creation of a variety of maps, a fiscal analysis, consideration by the Yakima County Boundary Review Board, and eventually a City Council public hearing. If there are any questions at the time, I'd be happy to answer them, and there is also a representative from the property owners who's available as well.
Council, what is your wish? What's your desire?
If there is no opposition, I think we should just move forward.
I concur.
Do we have a motion?
I move to accept the notice of intent to commence an annexation, direct staff to draft a petition, and collect signatures from property owners to begin the annexation review procedures.
Second.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, it is passed. Next is a public meeting to consider the citizens' comment on the proposed 2019 annual action plan for CDBG and home fund programs. Neighborhood Development Services Manager Archie Matthews will.
Good evening again, City Council.
Good evening.
Good evening again.
We're here tonight to hold the first of 2 HUD-required public meetings asking for public comment on the proposed 2019 annual action plan. Legal notice was given in both Yakima Herald and El Sol, with copies of this draft plan available in City Hall at the City Clerk's office, the Office of Neighborhood Development Services, and also available on the city website. Also published in both newspapers was a HUD-required 30-day written comment period beginning on January 22nd, 2019 and ending on February 21st, 2019. We, as most of you know, usually do this in the fall prior to the year.
Seems like we just did it.
This year, we're a little different. And in our correspondence to HUD, we have been instructed to make City Council aware during this public meeting that we are asking HUD to change our calendar year to line up with the federal fiscal year. If I can explain. Years ago, I've been here 26 years. Years ago, we received our entitlement as early as late February, early March. But over the years, these awards have been delayed, and just last year, we received notice of our entitlement amounts in May, but did not receive the actual entitlement funds in our account until late September. As you can imagine, this creates all kinds of budget complications that the city has to deal with through its financial management process. Therefore, we have contacted HUD in order to remedy this situation to the best of our ability, and with the guidance of HUD, we are proposing to enable the city to move its federal entitlement through the Office of Neighborhood Development Services to align its budget year with the July 1st through June 30th federal fiscal year. In doing this, it would lengthen the 2018 year from December 31st of 2018 through June 30th of 2019. It would then allow us to submit our 2019 annual action plan to align with the federal fiscal year of July 1st, 2019 to June 30th of 2020. This process is actually a very simple process. The city just submits a letter to HUD giving them notice of the city's intent to realign its 2018 annual action plan with the federal fiscal year. There is no application process, no waiting period, or lengthy approval process. Just a letter to HUD giving notice of our intentions. Because there is no more or less entitlement or reduction of programs, there is no need for amending our 5-year consolidated plan or the 2018 annual action plan. Please also be advised this change only affects the Office of Neighborhood Development Services and the federal entitlements, shifting them from a calendar year to a fiscal year. This does not affect the City of Yakima's Finance Department or any other funding. ONDS will still go through the budget process aligned with the Finance Department and still go through the yearly annual action plan process as described in our citizen participation plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? None. So this actually is not going to take any action from us on this item tonight. It'll go to our March 5th regular meeting.
That's correct. And
Okay.
I would ask that you would open the public hearing and
Oh,
ask for any comment.
Oh, I'd be happy to. Public hearing, do we have any comments? I have no slips. Hearing none, I close the public hearing. Thank you very much, Archie.
Have a good evening.
You as well. That takes us to the next item, which is the presentation of the fourth quarter 2018 Capital Improvement Projects Report. Public Works Director Scott Schaefer and Acting Chief Engineer Bob DeGrosslier will introduce this this item.
Make a small one these days. Did she say put them right side up?
Yeah, this time you should put them right side up. I thought we viewed at 8.
So we started at 5.
I know.
Some of us started at 4.
Yeah, I was right there with you.
Does he have the PowerPoint, or do I just need them to?
Where's all the District 6 projects?
Right.
I'm just joking.
District 7.
Those 2 little tiny projects?
Hey, I got 1 and 7. Oh, no. Yes, sir.
Now.
We'd have to have a discussion about
Oh,
it.
you don't have any?
Oh, yeah. About the community.
Are
Okay.
the YCTV
All right,
guys going to
let's-
start
let's
the
get
PowerPoint?
going. We still have other items on the agenda. Quite a few, actually.
You just have two more, right?
I think he's coming. He's coming. Yeah, he's coming.
No,
Just to get started before the PowerPoint, good evening,
Good evening.
Madam Mayor, Councilman. Tonight's little presentation is for the fourth quarter of 2018.
Good. Locked out.
But in the past, we have done okay. And per previous council direction, even though it was like the fourth quarter, all of the information pretty much is up to date. It's like current events as of like today.
I do want to say that we do have one slip for this. If they're
Okay,
getting
there we go.
adjusted, maybe.
Just got it started. Okay.
Oh, thank God. They're going to put a signal on 64th and a 10. Have you ever tried to get through that?
Thank you. Just hit enter.
It's horrible.
It is.
How about I use
I'm
it?
like, what is 9 and 12?
9 is Comanche Canyon and 12 is a Nelson Dam modernization.
Oh, yeah.
But they're the
Okay, the first project is Garfield Elementary safety improvements, mostly sidewalk around Garfield School near 6th Avenue. That project has been awarded. We will start work in June of 2019. We're going to separate the construction from the kids while they're in school, and so we'll wait until after school is out.
Could we ask you to move that forward since
We would like to
it's-
read the small
It's
print.
hard to
it's
see
not,
the.
it's
can't
not
read that?
helping anyone
I can read
else,
it.
so might as well
I'm like-
bring it
You've
on
got
in.
glasses and you can't read it?
Hey, I was gonna switch
Yeah.
with Kathy and see if that
Thanks.
helps.
You need glasses.
That's tiny.
Okay.
Thank you
Our
very
next
much.
project will
Now-
be a new council chambers.
Yes.
Okay, so the Garfield School, that will be June of this year. Next project is McClure Elementary School Safety Project, safety improvements, which will be similar to Garfield. A lot of sidewalk additions where there is no existing sidewalk, about 9 to 10 blocks of sidewalk on one side of the street. That is under design. Design is nearly completion, and we're under getting right-of-way for that project. We will construct that one in the summer of 2020.
The highlighted yellow area?
That's in the sidewalk areas.
Yes, I believe that is.
Yes, down on the lower strip, and then on the upper right-hand street. And this next slide is about the bottom 5 blocks on the west side of 24th, and right at the part of 24th at Viola, I believe it is there, for about half a block. Again, infill of missing sidewalk. Next project is North First Street revitalization. Just tonight, council took formal award of the project, and we will be, the contractor is chomping at the bit to get started. We will be starting at that as quickly as he can, get all his paperwork in, get everything approved, and be moving ahead. They should start construction in March, and scheduled completion is by the end of the year. That's just another picture of that one. Oh, this is the next piece. This is phase 2. This is from North First Street, from I Street to N Street. This is expected to be built in the fiscal year 2020. And the next section of North First Street, phase 3, is MLK to I Street, which will complete that run from MLK all the way to SR 22. That would be in the following year, fiscal year 2021. We may combine phases 2 and 3, but for now they're separate in separate years.
May I ask a very quick question? The first phase, what length is that? Is that from the freeway to?
SR 22 to N Street,
N Street,
just
okay.
a little
All right,
past
thank you.
N Street.
Thank you.
Cascade Mill development projects. The dates and stuff that we have included in those are kind of suspended for right now.
as talking about on the slide, the Yakima Nation had appealed the SEPA in September of last year, and we are proceeding through the NEPA to address their concerns. And so the construction will be, we have to get our environmental straightened up before we can proceed with that stuff, with those projects. Cascade Mill redevelopment project, again, it says third quarter of 2020 starting. That will be not start at that time due to NEPA that is pending. Skip over to Fruitvale and River Road and 34th Avenue roundabouts. It's a funded project, just a little over $1 million. We're working on design and right-of-way, and we're likely to start construction in 2020, early 2020, and finish the same year. Next project, River Road, 34th Avenue to 40th Avenue. The design is nearly complete. Should be going on bid next month. We're working with utilities and getting that information straightened out so that they can move their utilities prior to construction or at the very early part of construction. We start construction will be in May, and it's scheduled to end by Labor Day. YMCA will be doing their opening just shortly after that. Cowiche Canyon Trail, we're working on survey for the new alignment. The new alignment has all been determined along that trail, and we will need right-of-way in that new alignment after we've done some survey for that area. We're looking at potential construction in 2020. Next piece right now around the Sozo Soccer Complex, Spring Creek Road. There's kind of in two sections. It wraps around from 48th and Washington down to about 38th and Sorensen. Due to utilities in the way right now, we are doing the south half. We'll be starting construction. I believe it's in April or May. We just went out to bid, and then 2 months after that, we will be out to bid on the north half to the utilities will be out of the way, and then we'll be able to proceed with that construction on the entire project. That will be completed this year. Water treatment plant intake improvements. Just talked with Dave Brown before the meeting. They're starting JARPA permits right now for the Corps of Engineers. Scheduled construction would be early 2020, not the 2019 as shown, and still looking at the construction completion date of June of 2020. Fruitvale Canal and Nelson Dam improvements. They just are starting design currently with their consultant, and that is looking to the construction start fall of 2020, and still the construction should end June of 2022. Hathaway Street water line and wastewater line replacement. That's just now getting underway. The contractor's ready to go, waiting for change in weather so they can get in there and do their sewer and water. So that would be ending, and they're still looking at finishing that project in May of 2019. And the last project on my list here today is 2019 stormwater projects. We just had the bid opening, and it was within budget, and they're awarding the bid soon and starting within 4 to 6 weeks on construction of those. I think it's 6 locations.
So what is that, culverts or drainage pipes, or what's the majority of the infrastructure that's going to be installed?
A little bit of everything. Each site is a little bit different. A lot of those are wells and not wells.
Does that all go to the Gilbert Park?
I think these are all standalone areas. Okay. Otherwise, it would take a lot of pipe to get to the park. Any questions? Yes.
Seeing that you have some 2019 projects here, I was curious to know, and it's probably not included here because you haven't started it yet, but is there an anticipated start date or range for the alley pavement project?
Yes. Stormwater is working on it.
I can see
I guess
it.
it's a
I don't
little
care
unnecessary now.
Yeah,
put that in front of
we're
me.
done.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that as well. It's helpful.
Yes, I was actually conversing with our stormwater crew recently about that project so that we can get that started.
Okay. Is there a quarter you anticipate you'll be starting that?
Not that I'm aware of, not yet.
Not yet.
So we're going to have to get that designed.
Okay.
But hopefully we'll have construction started this year.
Would you like to hear from our youth here?
We have two
We should-
more.
Yeah, we have two more segments, but
Oh.
just, if there's a question about the capital.
No,
that's-
no.
We didn't realize there was more
No.
graphics.
Yep.
Yes.
Traffic calming.
Traffic calming. This one's already been discussed a couple of times tonight, but we wanted to report back on a quarterly basis with our CIP. As you know, we've changed our policy as far as traffic calming request. Before, when a request came in, it was either two things happened, either nothing or speed humps. So we've come out now with a new procedure where once a request comes in, the initial petition of 30%, we then go out and do a baseline monitoring. That's what we're representing here on this sheet here is a location of, we have currently 19 projects that we've done baseline monitoring on. One came in late at the end of this year, so we haven't done anything yet, but all 20 of them, all the locations are there on that map. Based on the data so far, and this was done so that drivers didn't know that they were being monitored, so that we get a fair analysis of what's going on. And it was split into three categories. One, and it's all based on the 85th percentile, meaning it's based on what 85% of the drivers are doing in accordance with the posted speed limit. It was either at or below the speed limit, within 5 miles an hour above the speed limit, or 5 miles an hour and more. There are 8 of those projects that qualify at or below the speed limit, meaning we're not going to do anything at this point because the data doesn't suggest traffic calming measures to be conducted. So those requesters will be notified, the data will be given to them. The other remaining will be going on to the educational component of the process, which means we'll be posting it with the flashing radar signs so that it gets people's attention. If there's additional signage that needs to be done as far as the speed sign, that will be done. If we don't see any improvements at that point, then it goes to the enforcement component. That's when we'll work closely with YPD. Based on the data that we gathered and the time frame we've gathered, they can really narrow their emphasis. So we're hoping that at that point things calm down, the drivers' behaviors have changed. Maybe that's all we need to do. But if there's still a safety aspect involved, then we'll go to the next process, which is the engineering of a traffic calming device. That's when a second petition is needed, and the city will initiate that at a public meeting. And 66.7% is required for us to proceed with actually getting something installed. And it's not going to be just speed humps. It's going to be other means such as the permanent radar signs, traffic circles, narrowing of the streets, and even speed humps. So our goal is to resolve the issue at the lowest level possible with the least disruption to the neighborhood.
Good. Councilmember Hill?
So I think that some of the questions I posed to public safety have been answered. My concern with the enforcement thing is I know we have finite resources for traffic calming infrastructure, but if I like to speed, I'm going to watch and see, gee, they're popping me and there's cops here, and then as soon as you leave, I'm going to start speeding again. So if I'm a resident in that area, I'm just concerned about us using enforcement to justify not needing a traffic calming infrastructure, and then the problem's going to return. I guess I don't have a question for you. That's just a comment, and I don't know if you have any feedback or not.
Well, part of that is that in that case, maybe the permanent radar sign will stay there, and then we can monitor that as time goes on to see if it's still an issue or not. Then maybe we do have to take it to the next level.
So your education and enforcement can kind of blend together in that instance.
Question?
Any other comments?
Well, while we're on that still, I think, to reiterate the importance of having clarity around how long education lasts. I wouldn't want to see, a certain neighborhood jump right into enforcement after 5-7 days, while other areas, wait 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So just having that equal application.
Right. It would have to take weeks because the whole point is to change the behavior of the drivers.
Right.
So it takes time. Last one. At the special meeting in January, one of the priorities of council is the main arterials. And Councilman Hill had requested, what is the definition of the main arterials and the locations of such. On that, I believe the red depicts the principal arterials, and then the green is the minor arterials. So those are your main streets.
I love it. Thank you for
Now, a
doing
quick
this.
definition of those is that the principal arterials, they carry the heaviest traffic for the shortest distance of travel. They're the entranceway and the exit to the city. They take you to the main activity centers at the highest speed of travel. Typically, it's 15,000 traffic counts a day or more. The minor arterials, slower traffic speed limits, they usually take about 3,000 cars per day at average, up to 15,000. The minor arterials, they collect from the residential, the collector streets, and then into the the principal arterials.
And I'm sorry, you said which was which? Red was?
I'm assuming that the
Main.
red is the principal and the green is the minor arterials.
I should have figured that
And that actually, those are our priorities during snow removal as well.
Sure.
Those plus areas that have hills, emergency areas, and schools.
out. Lincoln Avenue is interesting.
Right. It seems like that's a really high traffic area.
And Tyleton.
But maybe, how do you determine that? Do you count cars or traffic
Yes.
flow?
Yes.
Okay.
Very, very interesting.
And those were probably done a while back. They probably could be updated.
Now, is this on our website someplace, or?
I believe so.
Or can you email it to us?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Thank you.
And it would
Is it
also
on
be
the
helpful
GLs?
to make sure that
Okay.
it's online.
Yeah, I think it would be very helpful to be online and be able to be accessible very easily.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's great.
Thank you. Now, would you like to hear from our Shirley Strader, if you're still here?
There she is.
Oh, the Strader's up in here.
Hi, Shirley. You know you have 3 minutes. So.
Shirley Strader, Yakima, Washington, 10 North 45th Avenue. I saw the word infrastructure and here I am. I'm excited about
Good.
this. So, one of the things that while we work together, because I sit on your bike pedestrian committee, and one of the questions I think we would be asking ourselves is, rather than how do we move cars, might our better question be how do we move people within the city? So that brings in other three modes of transportation: pedestrian, bicycle, and transit. And infrastructure, you were talking about, Mr. Hill, infrastructure and speed, and once that officer's gone or once the thing comes down, you're absolutely right. It's the infrastructure that we build, and when it's built well, it encourages people and changes their behavior. So that's why infrastructure is really, really important. So when we're looking at our streets and we're designing them, when you're including pedestrian, transit, and bicycles, you're helping that infrastructure. So my other little quip is that there's money out there with grants, and if we move towards making our city sustainable, there's grant money to help us. So I'm here with you guys, and I'm looking forward to your directions and suggestions, and thanks very much. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Okay, that will take us
14.
to number 14 is a review and approval of the updated strategic plan. I think Jeff Cutter will introduce this, but we all had it in our packets, and I think it reflects the direction that was given at our strategic plan meeting. Do you have anything else to add to that, or do you want
Mayor and
to-
council, it's very simple, and it's just as you just suggested. This is the culmination of the several discussions you've had regarding the strategic plan and the amendments that you made following the study session regarding that. These reflect those changes. And on page 6 of that plan that I have to credit Callie with doing a really nice job of putting together, it demonstrates that there were 5 items from the list from last year that remains the same. There were 3 new items added, and 2 of the items were reconfigured to better address the council's complete consideration of a couple of different items. So the list is as you suggested it, with the committee assignments as you agreed. And unless there's any other requests or information, this would go forward as your adopted plan.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to move to approve the updated strategic plan.
Second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion to approve and a second. Are there any comments from either you or any of the council members?
I would just like to compliment staff for encapsulating everything that we said we would be working on and that was important to us. And it just feels really good to finally see it in writing and formalized.
Nice. Thank you. All right.
I also just have one brief comment.
Certainly.
We've adopted this, and I know it's a 2-year plan. We have comprehensive plans, and we have plans up to 2040. But I hope that beyond 2021, whatever the composition of the council is, we can have the long-range vision to keep these priorities. None of these are going to be done in 2 years. So I'm really happy that we're getting to a strategic plan that will push us, hopefully, in the right direction in the next 15 to 20 years, starting with the 2-year plan.
Okay. We have a motion and a second.
Yep, we already have that.
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Next on the agenda is a resolution authorizing open cruising events. And we have Cody Demonic.
Good evening, Council. I'll be brief. This is a resolution authorizing 5 cruise nights over the course of the summer. The municipal code doesn't allow cruising unless it's approved by council.
Okay.
Move to adopt the resolution.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the resolution and a second. Are we having any discussion?
I have a question. Go ahead, Jason. Sorry.
I just wanted to know if there were previous dates of cruising the Ave that were available, and how does this differ from previously?
The only difference is there's 5 nights instead of 6 nights this year.
The summary explanation leads off with, while cruising the Ave is prohibited in the city of Yakima, what is cruising the Ave? Define that, and if you can, I see a police department represented back there.
I think it's going back and forth, up
That's
and
illegal?
down.
So if I want to drive back and forth on
yeah.
the street, it's
At a
illegal?
very
Yes.
slow.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
speed issue?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, no, I remember this being an issue. I just wonder why it's illegal. But now I
Yeah.
understand, so thank you.
There
In
was
some cases,
some
they're not even
issues
driving.
in the past with cruising, so they prohibited, but they allowed for city council to make exceptions to cruise nights and to allow for a few of them to exist.
So
Okay.
cruising the Ave has to do with speed and
How
often
often
you
do
go
you
up
You
and
go
down.
back and
Yeah.
forth.
Okay.
Avenue.
Thank you for the
Councilmember White?
education.
How did we come up with the dates?
Those have just been the dates that have been requested by different cruise organizations. Some of them include Volkfest. Some of them were set by city council. There's a Ron Bonlender Cruise the Ave night. So there's several different organizations that have submitted requests for specific cruise dates over the course of the summer.
Did you say city council?
Okay.
Which date was that?
The city council, it was
Oh, the
approved in
bond.
the
Oh, okay.
past. I think the
I
municipal
missed
code,
something there.
the municipal
Unless you wanted
code
to request one,
refers
but you didn't know
to
it.
2013, which is when the ordinance was adopted.
Thank you, Cleta.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion on the table, a motion and a second. All those in favor say.
Can I read it first?
Oh, yes, thank you.
This is a resolution authorizing open cruising events to be held on June 15th, July 13th, August 10th, September 7th, and September 14th, 2019.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, it It passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is item 16, other business. I understand that Acting City Manager Jeff Cutter has an update to share.
Very brief, just to advise the council in response to previous council requests for information. Items B, C, and D are reports and information that council has requested in the past. They are under general information. They're in your packets. Certainly, if you have additional questions, we would be happy to hear them.
Are there any questions?
No, thank you.
Hearing none, are there any other business?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. The agenda item for discussing priorities with the Yakima School District was removed from this agenda. I'm not sure if that was decided by the council or the city manager, but it doesn't necessarily matter at this point. I do think it's really important, though, that we allow this agenda item to be on the city business agenda so that we could at least make a formal motion to direct city manager or staff to make a formal request of the school board to set aside time to meet with us this year. I think it's really important that we remain transparent in the public's perspective about our intent to have a good, healthy working relationship with the Yakima School District. And so I move, once again, to add the Yakima School District joint meeting priorities discussion to March 5th business meeting.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to add the, what was?
Yakima School District joint meeting priorities discussion.
To March 5th.
Yes.
And we have a second. Is there a discussion would you like to?
I don't think we need to go into detail now. It just allows us to have that discussion and make a formal motion if we decide to do it.
All right, anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes.
Great. Madam Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
I just would like an opportunity to share with my fellow council members that I took a trip to DC with the Yakima Basin Integrated Plan Work Group. When we were there, we met with several senators and congresswomen and men, and we had an opportunity to advocate for this project. Everybody knew about the project, which was exciting. Water is really the future as we move forward.
And the past.
In the past,
Thank
absolutely.
God we sent you.
Well, I just wanted to let you guys know that Congressman Newhouse signed the bill. It's a bipartisan bill with Dr. Schreier, Representative Schreier, and it passed also in the Senate with Maria Cantwell, Senator Cantwell, and the senator from Alaska as Republican again. Bipartisan, so we're really excited. Everybody is excited about this project. It's really one of a kind, and other municipalities throughout the state are looking at this project as a way to move forward when it comes to water allocation. So I just wanted to let you guys know that it was a successful trip.
That's interesting. Well done.
I was also in DC for the National Association of Regional Councils representing Washington, Oregon through IVCOG, and I'd like to talk more at some point about opportunity zones. And I think that, I'm not going to make a motion now, and maybe when we have our next special meeting.
We did touch on it briefly during Economic Development Committee.
I was
Right.
just going to
Okay.
say, I'd like to see it there too.
Sure, that's. I just think it's something that we should explore to try to access federal funding.
Yes, and I've been in somebody's emailing me on some information too.
Okay,
I think
great.
somebody wants to present.
Right. Yes, and I have some
Present
as well.
Okay.
I think that's what prompted my.
And YCDA is actually the one who is, I don't know if responsible and overseeing the, I don't know what it's, the opportunity tax credit, I don't know what it's called, but they're the ones who are responsible. And I think we only have 4 districts, maybe more for census precincts that.
This is precisely why I want more education on the topic. It's relatively new,
point.
at least in.
Yeah.
And then the only other item of interest was one of the representatives from North Carolina discussed a water metering. Actually, they're using AI more and more in their municipality to tell. They have a system through the water department that will alert not only the city, but the user if they have a water leak or a hose bib that's running, and they've saved millions and millions of dollars in taxpayer money, as well as just waste to the municipalities. So I don't really know if that's something that we can pursue in any way, shape, or form.
Doing some of that.
Oh, are we now?
Yeah.
All right. Well, then, why am I going to these conferences? You guys are ahead of everything. It's good.
Sounds good.
Great. Thank you.
I do have an announcement
Yes.
too. I was able to attend the open house for the Roy's IGA Community Health Resource Center.
Oh,
And it exceptional, you know, and it's in my district, it's about 2 blocks away from where I live. So it's a beautiful center. You know, I hope it's ran as well as, you know, as much effort put into maintaining and operating as it went into building out the facility. I believe it houses 37 individuals, 22 rooms, I believe. There's outside laundry, you know, for the community to come in and use some those resources. And it was named after Rhonda Hoff, actually. So it's a Rhonda Hoff Resource Community Center.
Oh,
So
the
she was
pictures
there.
are beautiful. It looks really nice.
Oh, it's exceptional. It's a, you know, it's a definitely a pride of the community now. It was an old, beaten down building, and I'm glad to see it flipped, it turned over so nicely.
oh, that's wonderful.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, maybe something could be arranged where we could have a tour.
Yeah, and city staff was there too, so I was glad to see them there on the weekend and going through it. Joe Caruso and our, you know, there was quite a bit of people actually there from the city touring it and getting some more information on it. So
Great. Anything else? If not,
No, Madam Mayor, I move that the council adjourn to a special council meeting on February 29th, 2019 at the Union Gospel Mission at 3 o'clock.
second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The meeting's adjourned.